Welcome back to the 24-4. Lane Kiffin is once again at the center of the college football world, but this time it's not because of a play call or a transfer portal move.
Instead, it's his mouth. Shocking, right? That shocks everybody, right? Kiffin just recently made some comments at Vanity Fair about Ole Miss recruiting and race in Mississippi as compared to in Baton Rouge, and all that is now going viral.
Yes, across social media, up and down my timeline, I just see nothing but Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss, LSU. So what exactly did he say, and why are so many people reacting so strongly to it now? Well, you know how it is. We break it all down with the man you can't talk Ole Miss without. He's the host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, which you can catch right here on 24 Plus YouTube and anywhere you download your podcast. Welcome to the show, Mr. Stephen Willis. I don't know if it's apropos to do a clap day.
This isn't a clap day.
It's not a clap day.
No. Yeah. So are we going to talk about who the starting pitcher is going to be this week for Ole Miss on Thursday? What is going on? Oh, wait. Lane Kiffin said something stupid, so we have to stop everything we're doing and talk about that.
I think that's his it almost feels pseudo-petty, right? Like he feels like he has to say something to keep the topic about Lane and negative about Ole Miss instead of just going on about your business. Bro, you got all the money in the world now. What you worried about?
Yeah. So for the people who did not know, what Lane Kiffin said in a Vanity Fair article, basically was saying that he's had a problem recruiting players, black players, to Ole Miss because of the racial history in the past with the Confederacy and stuff like that. And basically that's a tough selling point. And now that he's at LSU, it's easier that he doesn't have those issues. So, Stephen, my opening question, why do you think these comments from Lane Kiffin hit such a nerve so quickly online?
Well, first of all, when it comes to this topic, Ole Miss specifically is very sensitive because of the way they've been over backwards over the last 50 years to erase what happened in the past. Not necessarily erase it, at least learn from it. I should say that. So that is the reason that they're going to be hypersensitive about that. Here's the other thing about it. It's not true. It's not true. I talked with high ups at Ole Miss that have dealt in the recruiting process, and over 6 years at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin did not bring this subject up one time. He talked about student attendance. He talked about the building needing to be refurbished. He talked about the stadium need to be bigger, but he didn't talk about this. So it makes you wonder, what was this for other than a publicity stunt? This is my thought. Ole Miss is recruiting at a level that it hasn't over its recent history. And Texas is on notice. LSU is on notice. And everybody's going after the same players. These old cards that got played 20, 30 years ago, they're trying to bring them back out to win a recruiting battle because this is the first time that Ole Miss has been a real threat on the recruiting trail in probably 30, 40, 50 years.
So I said something similar to that earlier when we were talking before the show. I said that it sounds to me like he's planting a seed. And what I meant by that is he knows there's going to be recruits down the line that he's going to have to battle Ole Miss for. And he can plant this seed of negativity. And then that way when it gets brought up, it's not a right now. It's like, oh, I didn't just bring it up right now. This is something we've been talking about for a while. So that's what it felt like. It felt like it was a recruiting dig when I first read the article. Was like, oh, there must be a kid he's wanting that he's afraid he can't get, and he needs to do something else to help along that process.
Yeah, there was a 5-star from Lafayette, Louisiana on Ole Miss's campus like a couple of days ago. I mean, there's a lot of players from Louisiana that Ole Miss is interested in. And this is the reality of the Vanity Fair argument. It was very weird when he was having this conversation, and he found a way to get in the term segregation in there. Yeah. He was able to say that. And that means that whenever he's doing it, they can clip that outside of the he said, she said from a Vanity Fair article talking about Ole Miss and segregation. That is another reason why so many people are messed up, because they are using something real for something so trivial as this. This all reeks of almost petty ex-girlfriend going on, because it's not that he wants to be back at Ole Miss. He just wants Ole Miss to fail.
Yes.
He wants Ole Miss to not be able to succeed without him. And the fact that Ole Miss won 2 playoff games, the 2 biggest wins in modern program history by Pete Golding, that doesn't sit well with him. Him not being allowed to coach in the playoffs during that run really doesn't sit well with him. So when you look at this Ole Miss team and what's going on, he desperately needs Ole Miss to fail. He almost needs Ole Miss to fail more than LSU to succeed.
That is crazy, but I agree with you.
It's true.
I agree. Now, we do have to clarify, about an hour before we started this conversation, Lane responded to the backlash that he's getting, and it's still going on right now, saying those recruiting conversations that Ruben talked about were real, but he said that his comments weren't calculated. Does that change, Stephen, how people should view this?
No, he has a war going with the truth more than anybody else. The only thing that you should take from that statement is that LSU made him do it.
Yep, 100%.
That's it. That's the only thing. The quote is still out there. Nobody's going to talk about the retraction. They're going to talk about the original quote. So it's still going to do what he wanted to do, and everybody's going to forget about that apology. His war with the truth is real, and he is going to use that and weaponize it to use it against Ole Miss at a future date.
Now, there are some facts involved in some of this that we should probably talk about. Baton Rouge is like 66% African American. Oxford is like 20%, 26 or something. It's somewhere in there. So there is a disparity in diversity between the two cities. There's no doubt about that. So to your point, it felt almost like using that as a weapon in a conversation that it didn't have to be a weapon in. That conversation could have went anywhere. He could have taken that Vanity Fair article and made it all about the greatness of LSU and what's going on at LSU and what he's doing, and he took time out of that to go take a shot at Ole Miss, even though he came back later and said he wasn't taking shots at Ole Miss. That, to me, that says a lot about what's going on in his head. I mean, is he focused on LSU or is he focused on Ole Miss?
Opportunity.
Well, he's absolutely focused on Ole Miss right now because of what we talked about earlier. But on that fact, with what they're talking, they're going to say the Baton Rouge density versus Oxford. How big is Oxford, Mississippi, as far as square mileage of what's going on? Not very big at all. So the percentage of inside those strict parameters, yes, it's going to be a lot smaller than the capital of Louisiana. I mean that's kind of a ridiculous thing. If you spread that out over Lafayette County, got into Holly Springs or all of that, what the Baton Rouge footprint is with Ole Miss, those numbers would be a lot more close because Mississippi has the highest rate of African Americans in the entire country. I mean, it's not even particularly close. And whenever you cherry pick something like that, is completely disingenuous, designed to prove a point. It's not something to where, hey, this is going on, they're bad because this. No, we're going to take a 5-mile parcel in the North Mississippi and we're going to compare it to a 30-mile parcel in Louisiana, and surely the numbers down here in the capital, Louisiana, is going to stand out. I think that's a bunk argument because when you look at the fan base, when you look at the people that live in Mississippi, the numbers don't add up. It's 100%. Not that situation. So whenever Lane says that, it's disingenuous from the very beginning because he's setting arbitrary rules and parameters about these different locations and who lives in what.
Now, Stephen, you've spent a ton of time in Oxford, from the coaching staff and everything. You've spent years and years and years. Lane basically suggested that some out-of-state black families still had concerns about sending kids to Mississippi. And I think this whole argument is about perception versus reality. Is that perception about, out-of-state people, is that something people around SEC recruiting have quietly acknowledged for years?
Well, like I said earlier, the issue of race at Ole Miss has always been a very touchy subject, and rightly so because of the way everything went down. But the reality of this situation is his quote, and this is what he had to say, is grandparents didn't want their kids going to Mississippi, not parents. Not something recent. Even in his quote, it's talking about way back when. And I think that is a positive. That should be viewed as a direction that the people in North Mississippi have gone for the better. But the fact that it still gets used, and it's been a while, it really has been a while since somebody tried to use this against Ole Miss. And I don't think this is going to particularly work as well because basically Lane has lost the benefit of the doubt for what he's saying. Everybody kind of treats him like a used car salesman to begin with. But when you look at the progress that's made, his quote was terrible that he tried to do it. But when you parse what he actually said, that's actually a positive for Ole Miss because it wasn't 20 years ago. That was parents saying their kids couldn't go to Oxford. And there were people in Memphis that were saying, I wasn't going to go down there. From not that long ago, the playing in the 80s and 90s. Now we're talking about grandparents, and it's a completely different thing. It's one of those weird things. It's not a glowing endorsement or anything like that, but it's a step. It is something you can count on. It's like, see, this is working. We need to continue to try and get better, and the more we try to do, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, I think that progress is always the goal, right? You're trying to get progress every day. Nobody's asking for perfection tomorrow. What does this do? Because so if you take Lane Kiffin before the departure, he's just being successful this year at Ole Miss, before all the rumors started, you would have said, man, this guy's legacy is about to be through the roof, right? Like he's about to leave a legacy for real. Then you take the departure, the way that all happened. Deep down, he knew he wasn't going to get to coach, but the way he responded after that. And now, this isn't the first comment, but this latest comment as a dig at Ole Miss, what is this saying about what his legacy is probably going to end up as if he doesn't get this train back on the track?
The weird thing is, this is a guy that won 50 games in 5 years or something like that. It's one of the best runs in Ole Miss football history, and he is going to be remembered worse than Tommy Tuberville.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, he is going to be remembered worse than Tommy Tuberville because of the way he handled the exit. If he'd have just left and all of this just didn't mention Ole Miss and all of that, it would have been fine, but he can't help himself. He has to bring Ole Miss back into the story because of what we talked about earlier about needing Ole Miss to fail almost more than needing LSU to succeed.
So, Steven, I know, you're tapped in with a lot of people in Ole Miss and everything. What's the reaction been like from Ole Miss administrators, from Ole Miss fans since all this came out? I know it's been a war on social media, and I know you've been right in the middle of it.
Ole Miss has handled this perfectly. It's just like everything that's gone on from November until now. It seems like they haven't made a step wrong. You haven't really heard too much from the Ole Miss admins during this whole thing. And it's kind of like Sun Tzu, The Art of War, talking about when your enemy is defeating himself, let him. That's kind of the track that they are taking at the moment. Now, behind the scenes, they're furious that all this got brought up, and especially all the lies and the war with the truth type stuff that happens in articles like these. Whenever you look at that and start moving forward, I'm sure they have plans and plans on top of plans for ways that they can find remedies that they need to. But at this point, and with the reaction that Lane is getting over all this, it's America versus LSU, essentially. If you're not a fan of the purple and gold, you're on Ole Miss's side on this, and a lot of that has to do with Lane not having the benefit of the doubt.
Well, I guess we can say that September game is going to be intense. That's an understatement when LSU comes into town. Steven, as always, we appreciate your time, your insight. We knew, that's why as soon as it came out, I texted you. I was like, well, I know what we're going to talk about, so ain't no need of what do you want to talk about today. So appreciate you as always, Steven.
Appreciate you, big dog.
No problem, guys. Take care.
All right, coming up next on the 24th floor, it's time for Best Thing I Saw.
Yeah, you're going to love mine.